have you ever been in a room, just being quiet, and felt like you were making people uncomfortable? Well, today we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating idea from our source material. What if that quiet, masculine energy you have isn't just you being reserved? What if it's actually so powerful that it's intimidating people, and you don't even know it?
So let's just reframe that whole social dynamic for a second. What if your quiet nature isn't being read as shyness at all? What if to other people it comes across as a sign of hidden strength, of potential danger? The idea here is that people aren't ignoring you, they're actually a little bit afraid of you.
And this quote right here is the absolute heart of what we're unpacking. The premise is that certain masculine traits can create an aura so potent that it just becomes overwhelming for others. And the craziest part? The man himself often has no idea it's even happening.
Now, to really get a grip on this, we've broken down the 20 signs from the source into 5 key themes. First, we'll look at your internal state, that aura of calm. Then, we'll move to her observable unconscious reactions. After that, we'll get into her psychological defenses. Then, the impact of your words, and finally, we'll tackle that big paradox, the intimidating attraction.
All right, first up, the aura of calm. This section is all about how your quiet, centered presence is being interpreted by the outside world. The core idea is simple. What feels like peace and control on the inside can look a whole lot like contained, dangerous power from the outside.
Now this is where things get really interesting, psychologically speaking. We're conditioned to see loud, angry guys as the threat, right? But this perspective flips that completely. It argues that a man who is deeply, unshakably calm is way more unsettling. Why? Because you can't read him. An angry person lays all their cards on the table. A calm person, well, you have no idea what they're holding. And that uncertainty, that feels dangerous.
You know that awkward silence in a conversation? When you don't rush to fill it, you create this kind of social vacuum. And for people who are used to constant chatter, that void is incredibly tense. Her mind just starts racing, trying to figure you out. And she often ends up projecting her own anxieties right onto you. And that's exactly when you get that classic question, what are you thinking?
So, the source actually gives this whole phenomenon a name, emotional gravity. Think about it. It's that state you're in when you stop trying to perform for social approval. You're not trying to be the funny guy or the charming guy, you just are. And that simple act of existing, of being grounded in yourself, can feel really heavy and mysterious to people who can't figure you out. That's what they perceive as intimidating.
So if your calm presence is creating all this internal tension for her, how does that actually show up? Well, that brings us to our second section, her unconscious reactions. The idea is that her body is going to start giving off signals long before her conscious mind even knows what's going on.
And the key thing to remember here is that these aren't conscious choices. This is her nervous system reacting. Her voice might get softer, or her speech might speed up because of a little adrenaline kick. She might angle her body away, like a subconscious protective move. She might even start subtly mirroring your posture, which is a huge sign that your presence is basically setting the rhythm in her brain. All this just means her fight-or-flight system is on high alert.
I gotta say, this analogy from the source just nails it. It perfectly captures that push-pull dynamic we're talking about. She's drawn to the warmth, right? To the confidence, the presence. But the sheer intensity, the heat, it's so strong that she instinctively has to take a step back, just for her own comfort.
And that feeling of being too close to the fire leads us directly into our third theme. What happens when her mind kicks in to deal with all this? It starts building walls. These are the psychological defenses she uses, sometimes consciously, sometimes not, to try and manage that perceived power imbalance and protect her own ego.
So let's decode a few of these because they're pretty common. If she immediately starts talking about how she doesn't need anyone, that's seen as defensive posturing. If she argues with you over little insignificant things, she might just be testing your frame, seeing if you'll crack. Praising other men? That's an attempt to level the playing field. And acting overly confident or super casual? That's often just a mask, an overcompensation to try and match your energy.
These are basically tactics to reduce the social pressure that she's feeling. I mean, trying to win over your friends is way safer than dealing with you directly. It's like standing in the shade instead of the direct sun. Sticking to logic and debate keeps things intellectual, a safe distance from those overwhelming emotions. And acting all cool and casual, that's often just a shield to hide the fact that your presence is actually affecting her a lot.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about your words, because it's not just your silence that has this incredible weight, your words do too.
This section is all about why simple directness from a man with a strong presence can feel so, well, overwhelming.
Think about it. Most of us are used to social padding, little white lies, and gentle half-truths. It's how we get by. But when someone speaks with that calm, raw honesty, it just cuts through all of it. It's disarming. It feels like being put under a bright spotlight because it removes all the shadows and illusions, and that can make a person feel totally exposed.
And a compliment is a perfect example of this. When a man with that emotional gravity gives a compliment, it doesn't just feel like a casual, throwaway line. It feels significant. It feels like a spotlight has just been flipped on, and suddenly she feels like she's being evaluated. So instead of just being flattered, she might get awkward and deflected, because that level of focused attention is just too intense to handle.
Okay, this brings us to our final and maybe the most fascinating part of this whole idea, the central paradox. How can the exact same traits that intimidate someone also be the very source of their attraction? This is that push and pull dynamic that's at the core of this entire argument.
Here's the conflict in a nutshell. Her words are saying one thing, "You're intimidating," or "You kind of scare me," but her actions are saying something totally different. She keeps finding reasons to be near you, to talk to you, to orbit your world. So what is actually going on?
The argument here is that this isn't a mixed signal at all. It's actually a very ancient, very primal emotional cocktail. Think about how we're drawn to watch a powerful thunderstorm or a majestic lion from a safe distance. There's a deep, powerful respect for that energy, but it's mixed with a very healthy dose of fear, and that combination of respect and fear creates a magnetic pull that's almost impossible to ignore.
So, when we actually break down all 20 signs from the source, it's really telling where they all cluster. A whopping 65% of these indicators are about her reactions, both her body's involuntary tells and her mind's conscious defenses. This suggests the whole phenomenon is defined less by what you're actively doing and way more by how other people are reacting to your very state of being.
And that really leaves us with one big final question to think about. If any of this resonates with you, what do you do with it? Is this intimidation a barrier that you need to learn how to break down to connect with more people? Or is it actually a kind of natural filter? A filter that weeds out people who are overwhelmed by your presence and selects for that one person who isn't just ready for that level of intensity, but is actively drawn to it. It's definitely something worth considering.